Good evening, everybody. We're going to make a start. I know it's very warm in here. I think we've adjusted the room to try and mitigate that, but it is just what it is when it's 28 degrees outside. A very warm welcome to Areley Kings Village Hall. My name is John Campion. I'm the West Mercia Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm joined by my deputy, Mark Bayliss, and then from West Mercia Police Chief Superintendent Ed Williams, who is the most senior uniformed officer for this part of West Mercia, and Dave King, who is one of the geographic chief inspectors for this part of North Worcestershire. Forgive is not our normal amplification technology, so I just want to check you can hear us at the back. And anybody using the hearing loop, it is working in the way that people can hear. We only have two microphones, so we'll be using one very shortly for when we're hearing from you directly, and we have one to pass between us up here on the table. We wanted to make sure that there was good amplification so people could hear what was being said. We are recording the table session, as it were, because we had a lot of interest in the event, and we wanted to make sure as many people can see and hear the session that might not have been able to come. If anybody is uncomfortable with being recorded, we're not recording the audience, we are recording up here on the stage. There is no planned fire alarms this evening. There is two fire escapes in addition to the route that you've come into the hall. So if the alarm goes off, it is a real one. Please do make yourselves outside to the muster point. The whole purpose of tonight is to hear your views. You're going to hear very briefly from me to start with, and then very quickly we're going to move to hearing your views. I would ask that we are respectful to each other. So when I ask for people if they want to make a comment or ask a question, you just identify your first name and indeed just roughly where you're from, and then the normal rules in terms of allowing everybody to speak without interrupting them and all those kind of things. Pretty normal standard things, but the mission of tonight is to hear from as many people as possible. I, as Commissioner, want to make sure that the public are at the centre of policing, and sometimes we, the public, have views that can't always translate to direct operational policing, and sometimes things happen in our name in policing that we can't know all of the detail about. But the everyday feel of how it feels in our community, how safe we feel, and the work that's being done in our name, it's important that our views are at the centre of that. And I know that is something that translates from the Chief Constable all the way through to the frontline officers that keep us safe in our community. I also know that things in our community that we worry about aren't always the thing that cause us the most harm. So balancing community priority versus those other things in our society is again probably something that we will talk about this evening. And the other part I just wanted to touch on before we move to your questions and views is I'm up for further conversations. This doesn't have to be the only time that these things happen. In the modern world that we live in, there's lots of different ways we can communicate, and indeed meetings such as these, or indeed other versions of these, are always possible. And I want to make sure if there is a conversation to be had, that this isn't the only part of it, because I'm very keen that if there are things where we want to see improvement, that we do check to come back to make sure that those things have happened. I can't help but say it. I was born in Stourport. I moved to Areley Avenue just as I was 3 months old. We then lived up in Heightington Place. I live still locally now as an adult. This is a community that I am also part of, and my care and passion about the issues that we all see every day are authentic as to whether or not I have been able to address them successfully and the like. It's different, but what I'm trying to say to you is I am also part of the community that we are talking to tonight. So hopefully we can have a session where those views can be aired and we can work out what we can do to make sure we can improve the things that are important to us all. So, more than enough from me. Lizzie, my colleague, has got the mic, so if you wanted to raise your hand, and what I might do is just take two to start with, and then hear from the panel and do it that way. So anybody wanted to go first? There we go. So this side of the room, Lizzie. We go from the front, the gentleman in the blue top.
Good evening.
Hello.
My question is really, it's on behalf of my 11-year-old son. 3 months ago he was subject to an attempted robbery with a knife by two teenagers, literally 100 metres from where we sat. And he's scared now to leave the house alone. So I want to sort of ask, what message can you give him to reassure him that he's safe in this area? Because he doesn't feel safe. And while he's feeling scared and unsafe, the two teenagers that committed the act are walking around brazenly. They're riding around the area on electric bikes at dangerous speeds with balaclavas. And I've lived in this area all my life, and I've never felt as unsafe for my children as I do now. My daughter, walking home from St Mark's School, which again is half a mile away, said, after seeing 3 gangs of youths with balaclavas, said, "Daddy, why is everybody wearing things over their face?" What do I tell my daughter?
Thank you, sir. There was one more would be, there's somebody just behind, the row behind. Yep.
Hiya, I live on Cheshire Avenue, so I've got the bit that from the Walshers comes through in the alleyway. We've had quite a lot of antisocial behaviour pretty much outside my house. So again, like this gentleman in front of me said about balaclavas, e-scooters, e-bikes tearing it down, another group of teenagers that are causing havoc to my neighbour who backs onto the alleyway, constantly kicking down his fence. I've had to go out and tell them to politely do one because they're having a massive fight outside my house. I've got 2 young children, and they're screaming, they're swearing, they're throwing things at cars. 2 weeks ago, they robbed a traffic cone from further down Cheshire Avenue, decided to rob it in my neighbour's car, and then started just throwing stones at my car, my mum's car, who lives over there, that dented the car. Who do I contact? Because I feel like ringing 999 is not something that I can do. I've tried finding a report online, but it's taken so long that I don't feel. Is there anywhere where we've got a number for community officers who can come straight to the scene and help us with this antisocial behaviour? Because it's just not safe anymore, especially with these scooters. Is there any way that in that alleyway from Cheshire Avenue going out to Areley Common, is there any way that we could have bollards put into place to stop these people doing 30+ miles an hour going down a street where there are small children crossing the road, or God forbid one of them does get knocked over by a resident driving their car who wasn't speeding, but then we get the blame for it?
Thank you. Ed, breaking down some of those issues, and particularly touching on violence to start with, and incidents of violence like the threat with the knife that we heard from before. How does the work locally manifest itself over what's being done to identify and tackle, particularly around the violence, and then we'll move on to some of the other antisocial behaviour issues that we've just heard about?
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you folks for letting me come this evening and speaking to you. Firstly, I'm sorry that your 11-year-old son has had the experiences he has had. Any violent crime that happens in a community is one too many. I can't comment on the individual status of the investigation. That I'm not cited on that, but what I will say is a crime of that nature involving a knife would be investigated either by our response teams, so not our local neighbourhood teams that we will talk about later, or our CID teams that are based across Worcestershire. And we would look to investigate appropriately and exhaust all reasonable lines of inquiry, as you would expect the police to do, to bring those offenders to justice. Once they are brought to justice or identified, they may not be charged immediately because we are governed and work in partnership with the CPS to ensure that we either apply bail conditions, release them on bail pre-charge, and then work with a number of partners to identify appropriate either diversion activity. I would suggest if it's a crime with a knife and a robbery offence, we would be looking to send the offenders to court and work with our partners within the criminal justice system. That said, our safer neighbourhood teams have a clear role to play in the follow-up and support of violent crime victims, which means speaking to yourself, speaking to your son, working with schools in the local area to ensure that it genuinely breaks my heart as a parent myself of 4 children for any child to think that they don't live in a safe place. I want our local policing teams to be visible and a part of the community, and we only create that levels.
There is no police.
Everybody will get a chance. We've got a long session, so everybody will get a chance to have their say.
We only create those levels of safety by working in partnership with yourselves. And in terms of how we do that, that's both in a traditional sense, so through visible policing, and I'll come to the point you make about the size of the local policing team in Stourport shortly, but also how we do that traditionally online. So sharing messages, explaining where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're going to be. So we've got the opportunity for members of the public to speak to us, tell us what's happening, and then able for us to respond in the most appropriate way.
Can we, so one of the issues that we've heard through both the observations around antisocial behaviour, people behaving in a way that's impacting on the quality of life of it. And I know there's a serious violence bit that we've just been touching about, but there's that more general point around social issues often that manifest themselves, to which the police should be playing a role in solving. So what's your expectation? And it would be interesting to hear some of the views of the public as to whether or not that's their experience, the role that the police will play with other partners to identify it and then change it and stop it from happening.
Yeah, thank you. So I will hand over to my colleague to talk about some of the local work here. But in terms of tackling antisocial behaviour, this isn't an issue that we can simply arrest our way out of. This requires...
Why not?
Because it requires a whole system approach, working with partners, working...
Which is why we have horses in town, which is why we have...
Madam, I'm sorry. I will let you ask your question. I will let you ask your question, but let the answers be given. We've got a long session. Lots of the questions can be put, but we need to hear the answers. It's the only way to do it, madam. So, Edith, did you want to give your answer?
Yes, thank you. And I absolutely understand the frustration in the room. What I mean by saying we can't simply arrest our way out of the problem, it means that we need to work with our partners, whether it be the local authority, as part of a problem-solving plan, working with the local housing providers. The criminal justice route, for some offences and for some people, isn't the quickest route, but it is an effective route, working, as I said, with a whole host of partners, whether that's education, the council. The police's role, when we become aware of a problem, whether it be antisocial behaviour, throwing stones in terms of causing criminal damage, it's about understanding what information we've got. It's about working together with our prevention and safer neighbourhood teams to deliver an effective response. You will be the judge of how effective the response will be in terms of, that's not me, that's not other senior officers. That's about working with local communities to deliver an effective response. So I will hand over to my colleague David, who will talk about some of the local initiatives and interventions that we are dealing with and providing in Stourport and across Worcestershire, if that would be useful.
Can I just make a point before you do that's relevant to the point you just made?
Of course.
Thank you. Do you want
Okay, I'm Sean, I'm from Stourport. I just wanted to come back on the comment that you just made. I mean, can you hand on heart really say that you are maximising the powers that are available to you with your relevant partners? Because I had afternoon tea with the mayor recently and talked to him about some of the public, let me get this right, the PSPO that have been put in place in other towns that have suffered from similar antisocial behaviour as we have, and he was not aware of it. I've also spoken to the council and the police, and none of you were aware of it. So there are successful PSPOs that have been implemented by other towns like Wolverhampton, like Aylesbury, where they've suffered with youths on bikes that are not legal on the road, that are wearing balaclavas, that are carrying catapults and other weapons, and they've been able to disperse them, they've been able to ban them from different places, and there are a lot of powers now that are available to you. And I know it's not a blanket ban for the whole of Stourport, and we have to take into account medical and religious exemptions, but that is an example of one of the powers that is available to you that you are not using, and there are a lot of others.
I'll hand over to my colleague David to touch on the specific point about PSPOs, easy to say, and I will come back around the point around how you contact our teams from the second question that was asked.
Thank you. Just a thumbs up at the back, you can hear me okay? Grateful. Thank you, madam. Really valid point. I'm aware of that PSPO that you refer to for Wolverhampton. I've read that with keen interest myself. PSPOs, they last for 3 years, then they're reviewed. The one that you refer to here in Stourport obviously has a border around that. It's predominantly around alcohol restriction. That said, that is obviously if people are using alcohol to cause nuisance disturbance. And that obviously is not just obviously police, but also the local civil enforcement can take action in relation to that. Issue things such as a fixed penalty notice. I have read that with keen interest, you're quite right, it goes wider than just Aylesbury. When I did some research, I think they're down in the City of London and also in Essex, they're really using and actually expanding those tools. Something they're actually looking to pick up as well, so that I'll come the next review, it's due hopefully in less than a year. I'm looking actually to include some of them, notwithstanding is what you've obviously referenced about balaclavas for religious purposes. Yeah, Merseyside, yes, you're quite right. I don't see any reason why we can't have a look at that. Obviously, you fully appreciate that has to go out to the public for consultation. Yeah, so what we would do in advance of that, we would obviously link in with your local councillors, the town council here in Stourport and wider obviously the Wild Forest District Council. We'd take a view from people because that would have to come out to the public for consultation, and hopefully when that goes through, then we can step that in place.
So that hasn't been in place already considered?
They have to be every 3 years.
I'll just come back to the point about accessing and how to contact the police. So I think there's some information at the front this evening. Neighbourhood Matters is a free system. It's a great way of accessing and contacting your neighbourhood policing team, of which you've got 3 dedicated officers for Stourport, supported by PCSOs. And if you go onto our website, you can see officers and they've got their contact information available, and I'd encourage anybody who wishes to discuss a local problem that's not a crime in action. If there is a crime ongoing now, the advice would be to dial 999 or 101 or to report on our website. And if it is a conversation or you want some advice or you're unsure what to do, our officers are all issued mobile phones. They've all got their email addresses and are contactable when they're on duty and would be in the best place. So Sam Mayer, for example, who I've been out with this afternoon in and around in Stourport, would be a great contact to have that initial conversation and to record and to deal with any crimes that are reported and then to take forward any appropriate courses of action.
Sam Mayer is actually
Thanks, Ed. So,
5 of them.
let's take some more, they don't have to be questions, they can just be opinions. So I've got the lady just there and then the lady on the road behind.
Thank you. Belle Macmillan, I run the community centre on the Walshes. I think there is a different perception by the officers sitting here to the community that's sitting this side. You're perceiving it one way, we're perceiving it another way. I think what we're trying to say to you is we are unsafe in the areas that we live and work in. Yes, you're on about public consultation. Why isn't this already being done? There's been antisocial behaviour publicised for many, many months now on this area. So why hasn't that been an option put to the public or an option up for discussion? I wish you'd keep saying about the internet and reporting online. Lots of residents on this estate and the Walshes do not use the internet. So, in trying to get logged online to actually log a complaint in or a crime, it's nigh on impossible.
3 days, you days, but
Yeah.
it's not easy.
We phone, we then try to be persuaded to report online despite phoning. Can you not report this online? No, I wouldn't be ringing you otherwise. So there is this great tendency of what's the point and why should I bother? I'm getting no response when I need response, when it's an emergency or when I'm worried, and I'm having to wait. Crimes that are taking place are not being followed up by local officers. When I speak to them, half of them don't know what's gone on. So how are they supposed to follow the complaints up? So I think there's a big communication issue within the police service itself. There's a general apathy amongst the public of lack of trust with the police and the local policing team. You know, we don't see them. I just wish you'd hold your public meetings every few weeks, because we've had more police reports, more police presence in the 2 weeks since you announced this meeting than we have in the year. Respect for the local policing team. We have a damn good PCSO on the Walshes, Sue White, who is visible, who stands, who talks to us. I can't say a lot about the others, we don't see much of them, but I'm also fed up of all the trouble being blamed on the Walshes. The Walsh is a damn good estate. Yes, there are a few little miscreants that need dealing with, but no more than any other estate in this area.
Well said.
People respect where they live and they want to live in a safe place. For heaven's sake, give us the support and the resources to do that. The community want to do it, they're here.
Hello, so my name's Emma. I can't go out at night anymore, as I expect a lot of other people feel too fearful to go out at night anymore as well. Most of these youth carry blades, so you can't just have a conversation with them and say, what the hell are you doing shooting birds, because they'll just turn around and stab you. So back in my day, we had stop and search. That was quite frequent. If there was a number of us in a group, the stop and searches back in my day were very frequent. Empty your pockets, all the rest of it. I'm frightened that if nothing's done, and if no intimidating policemen and women on the street, with actual boots on the street, then vigilante groups are going to start forming, quite frankly. And good people, will be punished with the full force of the law because of these little out-of-control bleeders.
Thank you. Ed, one of the several points in there, and it's useful touching on a number of them, but the first around reporting, in terms of just, so what's your expectation around how things get reported and then how it filters down to the people doing the doing, you know, in the community investigating the crime, and then your expectation of how things get fed back to the public? I know it won't be 100%, but just give a sense of what your expectation is of what your teams are doing.
Yeah, thank you. So the point I was making about it reporting online wasn't to say that's the only way, it's one way of reporting a crime. I'd encourage anybody who has the unfortunate experience of becoming a victim of crime to report either on 999 if it's an immediate emergency, or via the 101 system, or online. There is also the other option of, if it's not happening there and then, to contact directly to your local policing team. When an incident is received by the police, it's assessed, a decision is made as to what the most appropriate response is, whether that's the deployment of an officer or if it can be investigated remotely. And then, when that crime is recorded, we are driving the standards of our investigations to ensure that we provide an appropriate response, a proportionate response, and officers are given the tools, the knowledge, the skills and the experience to investigate crimes. And I would expect those officers, when they speak to victims of crime initially, to one, provide their contact details, so you can contact them directly without coming through our control room, and two, to agree how regularly they will contact you. And if that's not happening, that's when I'd encourage you to pick up the phone, to pick up an email address, and to contact that officer, or to register a complaint, and it will be looked at. But the expectation of what our officers are asked to do in terms of victim contact, sending you the right details, sending you the right levels of support, are made really, really clear at regular intervals. And people like Dave, who work across West Mercia, and his colleagues, are tasked to ensure that we provide that service, drill down into team and individuals, so we can identify when, on the occasions that officers don't do that, we either provide additional training, or if it's a more serious and repeated issue, looking at some of those misconduct opportunities in the most extreme of circumstances.
We've heard tonight about the Safer Neighbourhood Team element of policing. West Mercia Police is a much larger organisation, 4,500 people, 2,500 police officers. Just bring to life a little bit the kind of policing resources this bit of West Mercia would have, and indeed what your expectation is of how visible and accessible your staff are in communities like this here in Areley Kings.
Absolutely. So there are lots of resources in policing. We've got over 2,500 police officers in West Mercia. On response, so typically you've got 999 cops that work 24/7. There are 160 police officers covering North Worcestershire, and they work earlies, lates and nights, and support and work alongside your safer neighbourhood teams. In addition to that, there are some problem-solving teams and some CID officers who...
I will come to you next, madam. You're next on my list, madam. I will come to you next.
That's 40 if you want to part of the names.
So 160 officers on response, supported also by a number of investigative officers, so CID in the traditional sense, that investigate the most complex and serious of crimes. Again, officers working across North Worcestershire. And of course, there's also then resources that you wouldn't see in terms of some covert capacity and various specialist dedicated resources. We also are fortunate to have our roads policing officers that work alongside response teams, again operate 24/7. There are always a roads policing contingent available, not only to respond to RTCs and harm on our roads, but deployable to other incidents that again are supported by firearms officers, which are thankfully don't respond to a high number of firearms incidents across West Mercia, but deal with the highest arm of incidents on assessment of review.
Thank you. So the lady here in the middle, is he?
How big is the
If you just hold on to your microphone, some people might not be able to hear you, madam.
How big is the
If
area?
you hold on to the microphone.
Sorry, I do apologise.
Thank you, madam.
Right. How big is the area that those police officers cover? How big is West Mercia of 160 officers? Stourport. That's what I'm trying to say. Because the area, it might have those numbers, but let me tell you, people want facts. You're giving numbers, but how many in Stourport? It took me 3 days to report an incident. You dial 999, we're asking questions. Can you follow them? Can you find out? Can you ask what's going on? That is not our problem. I took my little boy, who's 3, down the park, down Playland. What's not daft? Anybody else got children? Speak up.
Yeah.
It was unnerving taking him down there on my own when no one else was there. I was reassured by people working in Playland and dog walkers. I didn't want to be there on my own. You've got people, you've got a hooded somebody in the back of Burley School that's standing there watching children on that park. Yeah? There's no police presence. They've been reported. There's no police looking around there. You've got people taking that into their own hands to try and catch that person. Right? You can throw your facts and throw your numbers. How many have you got in Stourport?
Thank you, madam.
No, can you answer my question?
So I'm taking them in repair.
You can't answer it because there isn't any.
So as I've done with the others,
Right,
I've taken
you've
them
got a
in
van that's
pairs.
parking in the middle of town.
So-
You've got animal cruelty going on in town. You've got children being hurt. But you can't give us numbers.
So what I've said is I'm taking them in pairs. There's a gentleman behind you who will also hear, and then you'll hear an answer.
Simon, local residents, can I ask
So can I ask you to use the mic, so some people might not be able to hear you.
Simon, local residents, can I ask why Wyre Forest Police adopt a two-tier policing system here? And one instance I will give you is a travel funeral, which was intelligent. They call themselves travellers. I'm not using that word. That they turn around, the police advise local public houses to close down. Is it not you to turn around and uphold the law and keep everyone safe? And funny enough, there was an absolute fight outside the Briggs pub, rolling in 35 people spilling out of that pub, with one member of that wake ending up unconscious in town. Police were called. There were plenty of public order offences, swearing at your officers, not one arrest, because your sergeant said to me, if I turn around and arrest him, I'm taking 10 more people with me, and I've only got a few resources. I've got to pick my battles. Is it not for you to keep you safe? But an incident that happened with a respectful gentleman of the community, went looking for his wife, and he was worried about her, and he turned around and said, "Where the heck have you been?" And the bobby saw that, pressed his panic button, 12 police cars, 2 police vans, mace, batons, and 1 arrest for public order offence. Why should the pubs and places around town, when now these travellers coming through the town, are asked to close? Is it not you to keep us safe and our businesses to safe?
Thank you so much. So Ed, I absolutely get it. It's very hard to say there are X number of police officers and staff for Stourport per se, but it might be worth just giving some local patrol base here. Is Kidderminster, for example, that covers this part of North Worcestershire. Just give an example of roughly how many officers you would expect to parade at every shift, as it were, around that 24-hour clock.
You said you've got firearms officers and people to respond to these things. But a public order offence where 35 travellers are fighting through the street, you can't arrest people because it will take officers off the street and leave the rest of Kidderminster, Stourport and Hughley empty. So that's your sergeant that said that to me.
So what I'm trying to just get to, so we can get some context, and because there's some important points within there that I think we should talk about. And the first one being roughly how many parade strength, as it were, from just our local, and then that sense of, if you need a wider number of troops, how long does it take to brigade them, and indeed what is the process that happens? And then we'll talk about some of those other bits that we've also heard in the question, but understanding to start with about resources, what we've got here right now, and then how quickly can you start to brigade those bigger numbers, and what sort of strength can you muster?
Thank you. So, in terms of response officers for this area, those who are parading at Kidderminster, there would be a minimum of 20 officers for North Worcestershire. Coupling other officers that respond, you're talking right now a minimum of 30 officers on duty to cover Stourport and the surrounding areas. North Worcestershire. So that's what's available immediately across North Worcestershire. However, across the whole of the force, there are 685 response PCs.
How big is that area?
Across the whole of West Mercia.
That's our area.
The whole. So 160 officers covers the whole of North Worcestershire.
Is that Greenwich as well?
That would be Greenwich as well. And so
let them have a go answering the question. I'm giving lots of people time to ask the question. Let them have a go, give him some context, please.
However, if there is an incident that requires additional resources, we have response officers on in South Worcestershire, in Herefordshire and South Shropshire that we would coordinate centrally from our control room inspector, who sits 24/7, and we would deploy resources to that incident as required. And then that would provide...
So this won't work. This won't work if we get heckled on the floor. I've given lots of time, and there's lots of time to have the question. Lots of people got their hands up. We either hear what you've got to say and give some context, or it won't work. So I just ask you to hold on with what you've got to say, and I'll get to people quickly. Ed will be concise, and then we'll hear from some more.
We're just going round in circles.
And our control room inspector, as I was saying, has the autonomy and the empowerment to move resources, not only in relation to one specific incident, where we would muster typically officers in bands, as you would see deployed, or they move officers to meet demands. So if Stourport and Kidderminster has lots of incidents being reported over a certain afternoon or a weekend, they would move the resources across the force to that area being required.
So the other part is around, the gentleman refers to two-tier policing, i.e. we aren't going to uphold the law. You've heard it before, I've been in meetings where you've heard it before. What reassurance can you give the community that there isn't a such thing as no-go areas or issues to which we won't engage with as police? There are. So hear him, we've heard you, hear him.
I absolutely don't agree that there are no-go areas in West Mercia. There are not any. Our safer neighbourhood teams generally have a good relationship with many communities across West Mercia. And I don't believe there are two tiers of policing. We police without fear or favour, and we police by consent. And I accept you may have a different opinion, but I'm absolutely adamant that our officers make decisions based on the facts that are presented to them. Officers do use discretion, so the outcome, the individual action, so officers may choose to make an initial arrest at a specific incident, and they may also then look to investigate the matter retrospectively, so taking some details and then following up with victims or offenders, depending on the circumstances, at a later date. So that's where policing isn't black and white. There are individual circumstances that officers need to make that decisions based on many different factors to deliver timely justice.
So one of those examples are the riots that we saw last summer, where in the months afterwards all that evidence collated and then people being held accountable. So I've got the gentleman with the sunglasses on his head, and then the lady at the end of the road. Just hold on a second, just so people can hear you.
Right, my name's Dave. I know we've got people here from Kidderminster, Stourport, Redditch, Bromsgrove, etc. And you keep mentioning West Mercia and numbers. Just to nail it on the head, can I just use Stourport as an example? How many officers have you got dedicated purely to Stourport? Not Stourport surrounding, Stourport. How many officers have we got?
So there's the lady at the end of the road as well. So I'm taking them in pairs, the questions or points there. So there's the lady on the end.
I called 999 because I was physically assaulted on the canal, and the person that assaulted me was still there and shouting and screaming at me, so the dispatcher heard her, and I was told to go home once she'd left me, and they would send an officer to me and they'd send an officer to find her. Now 2 days later that policeman arrived at my house, 2 days after I'd been assaulted. That's why people don't call you, because you don't come.
Thank you. So, touching on the numbers question again, so maybe it's worth just talking about the safer neighbourhood team element to identify what are those officers based within the community outside wider resources.
I'll take that. I think it was yourself, Dave, wasn't it, that referenced that? So the way it works, I only can go back on experience. Obviously, I was operational police officer for many years, covering this area. So if I was a response sergeant and I was the three patrol bases for North Worcestershire, one's obviously been alluded to over Redditch, there's one in Bromsgrove and there's one in Kidderminster. And for me, I would dedicate, out of that crew of 15 people, you would at least have 2 double crews and an extra double crew. One would obviously be looking at the likes of Bewdley, and then you'd have 2 double crews looking at Stourport. What I would also say now, with my current hat on, I look after the neighbourhood policing team. One or two of you have already mentioned colleagues of mine, Sue White, Sam Mayer, they're my staff. And for example, I have dedicated PCSOs and for Stourport. So currently, and that's not withstanding the National Policing Guarantee with regards to uplift. So for example, there's 7 over this side, and we also have 5 officers for Bewdley and Stourport. Stourport in particular has 3, so that's an uplift of 1 at the moment, of which one of those is a trained rural crime officer. Notwithstanding outside, of course, we've got rural elements as well.
So there's 3.
Madam, that's neighbourhood policing, that's local, purely local policing. 3 local policing, supported by PCSOs. That's not, sorry, madam, that doesn't include other policing units, such as response.
Can I just go back on that one?
So just before you do, sir, I've been around a while as well, and the issue around numbers is an interesting one, because if we had a fully operational police station here with So I will explain to you why we haven't got that, sir, is because if we did, when something happened here, a murder or a bigger incident, we wouldn't be big enough to be able to deal with it, because the issues are wider than we would have the resources to deal with. So being part of the West Mercia family is how I look at it, is the fact that when we do need 30 officers to do something, or there is a specialist incident that requires a specialist resource, being part of that wider auspices of West Mercia, we're able to do it. Now, if you want the exact answer of how many cops are here at different times, it might feel a bit of a glib answer, is, well, as many as we need at the different times. Part of the sense that I am hearing and have heard before and have heard in the preparation for tonight is that the visibility and accessibility of the resources we've got is not being felt by the community.
Yes.
The lady just at the end reported an assault. You know, for me, that's not in line with what I would expect to happen. When things go wrong and things don't happen in line with what West Mercia would have, how would you expect that to be sorted out with the individual, so that we can service recover and indeed learn from it and try and stop those types of things happening again? And indeed, what would be the expectation in the report you've heard? I know you can't comment on the individual circumstances, but what would you have expected to happen?
So for your personal experience, so for any violent crime, I would expect for when that report is received in our control room, it's reviewed by a supervisor, that might be a sergeant or an inspector or a member of police staff, to determine if it's appropriate to deploy there and then. For the vast majority, not all, but for the vast majority of violent crimes, it's more appropriate than not to deploy officers directly.
And that's what they told me on the phone. They'd send people, they'd send someone to me, go home, stay home, we'll send someone, and he didn't come, not for 2 days. And then nothing was done about it. So
I'm really sorry you've had that experience. What I would expect then is when you meet that officer and you explain, and it's not that officer's individual fault that they've attended, because it would probably be somebody on a different shift or a different team, I guess, that officer would then feed back to their sergeant would review the circumstances of that deployment to ensure that we either learn the lessons of what went wrong, whether that was an individual mistake or it was an organisational area of improvement that we need to get better at.
Thanks, Ed. So I've got right on the very back row, there's a lady in a pink top, and then there's a gentleman who's been very patient on the other side of the aisle.
Okay, can I carry on?
Dave's question hasn't been answered either.
Okay, hi, I'm Tina. I live on Victory Lane. Just for a little bit of background to understand how I feel living in the area, I'm originally from Worcestershire, but I've spent an extended number of years living in South Africa, where violent crime is an everyday happening. You would expect that if somebody is going to steal your watch, they're going to shoot you or stab you. So violent crime is an everyday occurrence. When I came back to Stourport, I was so delighted to move back to a small town where, and 6 years ago, it wasn't too bad, to be fair. In 6 years, I am now afraid to walk into town or back in the evening by myself. That I should never feel like that here. I left a country, and the reason the crime in South Africa doesn't get sorted is because there's such a divide between the services that are supposed to protect the people and the people. And sitting here tonight, that's exactly the same here. The core problem here is, with all due respect, and I've worked in the health system, so I completely respect what a difficult job the police have. However, when you're talking to us, you sound far removed from our experience of daily life. The kids that we're talking about, on a day like today, you will find them in a road in Stourport with their hoodies, balaclavas, on a hot day like today. They are not just dressed in the latest fashion, which is what one of your community officers told me last year. So when I asked, why on a day like today should I report this young chap in my road on a motorised scooter with a hoodie and a balaclava, he's obviously up to no good, on a hot day like today, they told me, really, we understand, but this is the latest fashion. All the kids are wearing hoodies and balaclavas. No, they're not. And the longer that we give those kids an opportunity without visible policing, the more brazen they're getting. They're getting more confident. They're getting what they're doing. Whereas they might have had a little respect for elderly people before, now they're getting more and more brazen. They don't care. And I think a lot of the point that the people are making, I'm sorry to talk for so long, about numbers of police. I think whatever the system is, and it's not your gentleman's fault by any means, but as representatives of the system is not working for Stourport. West Mercia Police may have plenty of police. Geographically, our nearest police station is in Kidderminster. So when something happens, like somebody gets assaulted, like say one of those kids pulls out a knife, they have done with somebody, with a young lad, the nearest police station is in Kidderminster. Geographically, it isn't working for Stourport. So I think you've got to have a little bit of understanding of where we're coming from as a community.
Hi, it's Gary. So apologies first of all for turning up late, but what you can see here, we've got very passionate residents, friends, neighbours around me, and we can all make data look fluffy, we can make it look sharp, and we can intimidate it as well. I would like you to respond to the questions that are being asked, taking in consideration that the questions are actually coming from local residents. So when people ask you how many police officers are on duty, they're on about people local, not in the whole of North Worcestershire. Okay? So can you please take that away from my friends, my residents, my colleagues, people around. But we're talking about resource, and for the last 2.5 years, over on the Snipes, and not just Snipes, I've read it in other areas as well, Kidderminster, there's that pandemic of people on motorbikes, pit bikes, racing around, with masks, without masks and all the rest of it. Myself and other people that took photos, given to the police. I have had some feedback saying they've been given a section 59, if I remember rightly, and the alleged been dealt with. However, the point I'm getting across is, when I'm talking about resource, do you use shared resource with other police areas? The reason I say this is that because I read again in other areas where they've used specialist motorbikes on dirt bikes to meet these people. They use drones. Now, when we had it in the local area, I'm quite sure if we had a drone and actually followed them back to where they lived and all the rest of it, it'd have been resolved a little bit quicker, because one, it's been recorded and you catch them where they're actually residing or hiding out, shall we say. And my question is, do you use shared resource to support our community?
Thank you, sir. I've got the two ladies here. I'll come to you next. I know the lady's been waiting very, very patiently. So the first part, Ed, around things like groups of young people hanging around that can feel quite intimidating. You know, some of the behaviour that we've heard about around balaclavas and riding e-scooters and generally behaving in a way that is making people be legitimately fearful, or the fear that might not be legitimate. But either way, it still feels unsafe. What kind of things would you expect to be happening here? Because the point of being here is we know there's an issue, because otherwise we wouldn't be holding the conversation, would we? We wouldn't put the session on if we didn't think there was a problem, and we want to understand what it is, hence why we're having that conversation. But and it's useful to just have some context as to what you would expect to happen in those types of circumstances, because it is here, of course it is, but it's also elsewhere, and others might have had more success in dealing with that. Also interested as well, because the second contributor referred to it, around the different powers that we've got now in terms of protection orders and others that were referred to, and how they're also getting used locally.
Thank you. So in terms of antisocial behaviour, that's dealt with by our safer neighbourhood teams, the local team here, and our response colleagues. We clearly need to do more in terms of the feeling in the room. We deter it by sometimes being visible out on the streets. Cops and PCSOs. Officers and PCSOs out on the street, and then when we get reports of...
Let him answer, otherwise there is no point. Let him answer. There's lots of time, lots of people will have their say, but we've got to let him answer. That's the only way that it will work. We're in a meeting talking about rules and law and order, and I'm just asking us to be respectful of the person answering the question, and I will come back to you, madam, I promise. So therefore, let him answer the question, please.
And then we're losing the point. Why is it 2 at a time? Why can't we just ask a question? Exactly.
It does not matter. People are passionate. Respect it.
And I'm asking you to respect other people, to be able to have their say without interrupting, so therefore that we can hear the answer. And I would get to them sooner, madam, if I wasn't dealing with you heckling me. So let him give his view, and then we'll move on to the next view. Go on then, Ed, have another go and try and go.
And then...
We need to make, otherwise we're not going to hear lots of people. That's the point of being.
Can I just respectfully ask John that a question is asked and that is answered? That is all I'm wanting. I expect everybody else in the room just wants one question and one answer.
So let me ask you a deal then. If we do that, can they be answered without interruption?
Yes.
That's agreed as well. All right. Excellent. Thank you. So we will do that from these two that we've just had. So Ed, do you want to have a go at addressing that? And particularly the point around the orders we've also got and what you would expect.
Yes. So one way of tackling antisocial behaviour, as I've said, is visible deployment of officers and PCSOs. The other way is to work with our problem-solving team, so that's the teams of officers and staff. The local team here is based in Kidderminster, that work through with local authorities, civil intervention orders, whether those are targeted towards individuals when we identify troublemakers and local antisocial behaviour people who are responsible for such behaviour, or, as we've heard tonight, public space protection orders. We would go through a number of different processes. These are not long, elongated processes. Their behaviour is reviewed, it's assessed, and then a decision is made by a supervisor to determine whether we employ an order by the court, a behaviour contract, or a whole plethora of different orders. What we also have in Stourport is something called hotspot patrolling, which is additional extra officers brought in on overtime on some occasions to patrol in dedicated areas. I absolutely, and I'm not here necessarily to change your mind or to argue with you. What I am here to do is explain what we are doing in terms of those response. So a hotspot, and I'm not here to baffle anybody with data or anything like that. I genuinely don't want to do that. And if you feel I'm answering the question, that's my failing. But a hotspot is an area that we have identified through police and partnership data where ASB and serious violence has previously taken place. What we do then is deploy officers for a minimum of 15 to 18 minutes at a time on foot to walk in that area and be visible. Clearly, from the level of feeling in the room tonight, we need to be better at selling to you what we have done and when they have been out there and what they have found. And I will absolutely gladly take that away. But there is a whole host of activity that we tackle antisocial behaviour with.
So the other question was around sharing resources. So we do share resources, and indeed the gentleman referred to off-road motorcycles. We've just had, in another part of West Mercia, I've been and seen some of the work targeting off-road motorcycles using a resource from the West Midlands. We're seeing it increasing in numbers here, so we're looking about how we can also have it here permanently rather than having to buy it in. So we do share more specialist resources, but also we're large enough to be able to have some of those resources ourselves. So very patiently, the lady in the right top, Lizzie, with the fan in the air is next.
Hello, I probably don't need this.
You don't know?
No. Hello, I live on the Walshes. I've been here for 23 years. I moved from Birmingham and I came here and it was like heaven. Now I go back to Birmingham because I've got family there, and it's like heaven there, and it's like hell on the Walshes. You would be mentioning about the groups with the balaclavas. They ride straight at you in a car. You knock one down and, oh, it's a shame, the poor lad, and all this. We never, ever, ever see a policeman walking round. Excuse me, I'm sorry, what was his name?
John.
Mr. Campion, you said you still live in Stourport. Do you get any problem round about where you live? I bet it's dealt with though, straight away.
Sorry, no, we're taking them one at a time. That's the deal. The deal I agreed, sorry. What's your expectation around visibility? Obviously, we can't be in every street all the time, but what portion of the time would you expect your staff visible out in the community, seeing what for example, the lady that's just said is experiencing?
But I think we're going round and round and round and round and get nowhere. We're getting the same answers. And all we want to know is when are the police going to do something about what's happening around here? That's what we want to know.
Sorry, I thought you wanted a response. The lady behind you, and then there's a lady on the front row.
In other words,
hello, my name's Jo. My partner farms on the Snipes. A couple of months ago, he was farming wheat, had 6 motorcycles in front of him roaming all about. About 2 hours, had enough. About 2 hours, had enough. Found the police. 2 came from Kidderminster, young girl. He said she looked about 18. Then he said that he might take it in his own hands. He got told off, and all they done was videoed it. So where is the feedback?
Yeah.
And another thing, my mum, I grew up in Abley Avenue. My mum still lives there, she's 79. Why should I lock her gate at night? Why? Why should I? She's 79. It's not safe for her no more. Nothing's done, is it? It's round, the lady just said, round and round.
Yeah, we're just going round in a circle.
Excuse me, the allotments as well. I've got an allotment. My sister's got one behind. We've got a shed, what is unlocked. Unlocked it is. There's nothing in there. Somebody, how many weeks ago was it? About 3 weeks ago, somebody smashed both my windows in my shed. Through the great big slabs, go straight through the windows. Why? There's nothing in there. And I've got kids climbing this village wall. They shout over the fact it's bad language. It's disgusting. This lady here cleans at the hall. She can't even get in the door because they're stopping her. Disgusting. Where's the people helping her? There's nobody walking around.
Stourport, the data shows that we were the worst town for antisocial behaviour in January this year.
Okay, so obviously the point is tonight about hearing the views of the public, and I'm just struggling a little to know which bits you want to respond to and which bits... Say again, So we haven't really touched on e-bikes and indeed those types of things. How are policing responding to it, and what kind of things are available? There's a sense that it's not happening here at the moment. What kind of things can be done to tackle that?
I'll hand over to Dave, because I know David has been leading a piece of work specifically in Stourport on e-bikes, and can talk about not only initial action but what we do after we hear the report.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we can obviously, I concur myself, had some data run and looked at it, and I obviously understand in relation to youth-related activity and in particular motorcycle-related offences. So obviously e-bikes and motor scooters are two different things. So the e-scooters, we're doing a lot of work. I run a district schools and police panel for the Wild Forest, and that'll step back up again in September. Really keen actually to educate people, because I don't think a lot of parents are fully aware of the fact with regards to e-scooters. You need a licence. They're actually deemed under the Road Traffic Act as a mechanically propelled vehicle. Please hear me out, because actually we are doing ongoing work, and actually what I will say is it was alluded to in relation to around the Snipes. A couple of people have mentioned it. So we do work closely with our policing team. So for example, the Snipes comes under Baldwin Ward, Malvern Hills. So we're linking with my colleagues from South Worcestershire as well, because they've also experienced the same kind of things. We're linking with other units, so we have a motorbike support group as well. So we have used them effectively across the other way. We've got some schemes at the moment looking to introduce, particularly around the Snipes, as well, specifically targeting around e-bikes and e-scooters in particular. Yes, I totally agree, they are a menace, but then there's a bit of an educational piece to try and explain to parents, stop buying them, because actually, if we find them... Sorry, I won't be able to answer if I'm just shouted over. But your point, and I do hear what you're saying, so we are trying to do some work in relation to that. We have issued 6059 warnings. We have also done bike seizures in relation to that. Technically, I'm trying to get the word out there, particularly to parents, because of the fact, obviously, if they're using them, they're mechanically propelled vehicles, so therefore, if they're caught on those, when they capture them, believe me, they do go at some excessive speeds. So it's not always easy for us to capture them, and you'll exactly appreciate if they're on the towpath, we sometimes are not going to be able to follow them. We have to obviously be realistic in relation to that, but when we do capture them on certain high streets, we will seize those bikes, those children, and there's a piece of work that I'm doing at the Magistrates Court, rather than actually putting that through to the youth offending team, that actually they can be dealt with in the court system as well, because there's a couple of offences. You've got driving otherwise in accordance with licence and also driving with no insurance. So we are trying to do a lot of work in relation to that, and I'm hoping that in the next few months, again with the schools on board, get the educational piece across, so that not only the children are aware, but also the parents, so they're not buying them, because of course, as you know, you can buy these things online.
They don't go to school, these on the motors and the bikes and scooters, so how are you going to...
If you crush them, the message soon gets out.
So the lady on the second row with the white top.
Just being
my name's John. I live down Areley Avenue, and in July we had loads of police at a certain house,
Right. They had a search warrant. They searched the house. It had, apparently, according to the local newspaper and the police report online, that they found £3,000 worth of cash, 60 to 90 wraps of drugs, an imitation gun, a knife, and in the garage, a cloned black Fiesta car, which was believed to have been stolen from Malvern on the 19th of July. Now, they arrested 2 youths, 18 and 19-year-old, actually in that house. They're out on bail. Yeah. Why are they out on bail? If you found all of that stuff, that's evidence. As far as I'm aware, you as police get evidence, you don't investigate, you never get the ability to get a search warrant. You find the stuff, you take them and get one under arrest, you interview them, you then get more whilst you're interviewing, because you've got a certain amount of time. You interview them, then you go, if you get some more information or evidence, you go to the CPS. And then the CPS decide whether you can arrest them or not. So obviously, what's happened here is you've gone to the CPS and they said, oh no, you haven't got enough evidence. You have to put them out on bail. Now those kids are still back in the house. They're roaming around. They're all around the bikes.
And they're the ones that are put down on the bikes and the scooters. It's all illegal.
They're in the front, intimidating people. One of my neighbours has got a friend up the top of the road in the bungalows. She used to walk up there, but now, because of the intimidation of these people, I'll say people, I won't say anything else, she has to walk down to the bottom of the road, all the way down Pearl Lane, up Dudley Road, and back over, down Areley Kings Common, and then meet her friend. And then she has to walk all the way back because she gets abused and intimidated. Is that right? She's in her 70s. Why should she have to do that? That's in the daytime. That's not right. You know, I just find it all unbelievable that you haven't arrested these people when you found, apparently, as you've reported on your website, you found all this stuff. Why are they on bail?
And this is a private house?
Yes. It's a private house. It's been rented out to these jobs.
So, and the very last part of your question about why should that lady change, go a different route, she shouldn't, because we should be able to provide a society where that's not necessary. Now, I know we're not going to want to get into the individuals of a particular ongoing case, but give some context about what the frustrations are about that between the executive action in the incident type thing that's referred there and then something happening. Why does it take so long between, why is there such a big gap between something happening and then somebody being held accountable?
Exactly.
So it sounds like we made 2 arrests in that particular case? Okay, so what happens when somebody's arrested for those sort of offences? There are some exemptions, but typically the police have 24 hours to either release somebody, charge them, or put them on bail within a 24-hour period. Within that 24-hour period, we would typically interview them, complete further inquiries, as you said, and I don't know if we have in this case or not, speak to the CPS to authorise a charge or not. Depending on what they said in the interview, depending on the evidence that we've got, if they have been placed on bail, it would suggest that there are further inquiries to complete that we cannot do within the first 24 hours, and therefore we would give them a date to come back to the police station, we would put conditions on their bail, and if they breach their conditions, we could arrest them and bring them back to the police station, and in that interim time, we would speak to the CPS to agree charges or not, or what charges actually probably is most appropriate in that case. What level of charges, whether they will be charged with the offence of burglary or handling stolen goods. Then what happens, the custody sergeant makes a decision on whether they are bailed to appear at a court at a later date or whether they are remanded to appear at the next available court depending on the severity and the risk to ongoing victims. There is a frustration in terms of the number of cases that the courts are working through and the number of cases in the criminal justice system that when somebody goes to court and they either plead guilty or not guilty, some trials are being listed for not only 12 months but for more than 2 years away, or 3 years if that's the case. So that's, again, not just exclusive to Stourport, not exclusive to West Mercia. It's an issue that's attracted government, ministerial pressure, and we are all, and my officers, would love to see shorter waiting times, no queues in the criminal justice system, but as a result of the pandemic and some issues before that, we are continuing to work through a number of cases which are backlogged in the system.
Can you just tell me though what happens to these people that are not going to be, according to the internet, there are 80,000 backlog cases to be seen in court. What happens, and most of them have been told they're not going to actually get caught till 2028. What happens to the people in the meantime? Do they come home?
It's a real scandal because in our society we expect the law to be upheld, but our prisons are full, so therefore the ability to hold them to account is not there. And in West Mercia, we've actually, our waiting lists to go through Crown Court are getting longer, not getting shorter, and that's a real frustration. Why I drive to want to hold more criminals accountable. And your central question about how they're managed, it's about the conditions, and you see some really impressive work of West Mercia using those bail conditions about how to try and minimise some of the harm that's being caused. And I don't want to get into your explicit detail because it's not fair to prejudice the case, but what I'd say to you is, if you think somebody is subject to bail conditions that's still causing harm, reporting it is really helpful, because I can tell you the officers are really motivated to want to hold those people accountable, and bail checks are something that are given lots of attention by local police. And it might be worth us having a chat afterwards with the officers around something that maybe can assist us. So we've got a lady a bit further back with the green top on who's also been waiting very patiently.
Hi, my name's Andrea, and I just wanted to say, are you the Chief Constable, did you say, for West Mercia?
Chief Superintendent.
Okay, so reportedly the Chief Constable for West Mercia has stopped all PCSOs working after 8 o'clock in the evening because apparently antisocial behaviour does not happen after 8 o'clock in the evening. And I find this quite extraordinary. Somebody would think that. That's the one thing I wanted to say. The other thing is that you said there was 3 police officers actually for Stourport. So that means, in my mind, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 at night. This town in 2021, which is the last set of data I could find, this was a town of 21,000 people, so I'm assuming that's probably pushing 30,000 people today. And remember, this is a holiday town that lots of other people like to come and visit. It was a beautiful town, but unfortunately there are no police here. We lost our police station. We've lost everything. It's not enough. There's no visible presence. And moving on from the antisocial behaviour slightly as well, the actual town itself, because this isn't just regarding Areley Kings and the Walshes, I believe, the town itself, you can't move for cars. There's no one out moving anybody, and you might say, well, the streets aren't our problem anymore. It's enforcement from the local authority, but you cannot actually move down by the bridge, all outside the bridge pub, all up the town. People are parking on the right hand side of the road. They all say they've got disabled stickers. Well, that's fine, but actually there's yellow lines on the side of the curb, which means that they can't park there, and we should have some visibility actually opening this place up and getting it back to the town that it once was, a beautiful, lovely place to live and visit.
It does clearly happen after 8 o'clock. Do you want to just give some context as to what is happening around the potential changes around PCSO hours and what else is being done as part of that change?
Okay, so I'm not going to give you any waffle here. You're not going to agree necessarily what I'm about to say, but I just asked I could just finish the answer to give you some of the context, okay? Happy? Okay, so absolutely, in terms of our PCSOs, as of the week commencing the 10th of September, we will see a consolidation in hours, not a reduction. PCSOs Give us a sec. PCSOs will now currently today work until 10 o'clock at night. They do not have a power of arrest and they do not tackle offenders. Their job is to be visible and their job is to build relationships in the community. As of September, mid-September, they will finish their working day at 8 p.m. And that's because of two reasons. We've had to make some tricky decisions to balance the budget. Police forces do not go bust, but we have to maximise the public pound that we get. And PCSOs get what they call an unsocial hours allowance once they work past 8 o'clock. The difficult decision that's been made and supported by the Chief Constable saves the force just over £350,000. What it does allow us to do is to maintain those numbers of officers and staff working in our safer neighbourhood teams. Because an alternative may have been to speak to the Commissioner and agree a reduction in those numbers, which none of us wanted to do. The change is also driven by data that's not specific to Stourport, and I'm not going to try and kid you it is, but across the force we see an ASB spike between 5 and 6 in the evening, and then a considerable drop-off at 8 p.m. If we were in a perfect and ideal world, and we're not, and there was plenty of money running through public services, we possibly wouldn't have made this change. But we've had to make some difficult decisions to balance the budget. That said, and again, you've seen the benefit in Stourport of one additional officer as part of the safer neighbourhood teams.
Have we?
Yeah, so you've had 2 and you've now got 3. Now officers into Stourport, and therefore we're able to grow the number of officers, and therefore if incidents happen after 8 o'clock, a PCSO won't attend come September, but officers will be able to attend, and therefore we are not looking to withdraw any local policing resource from our communities, and we are looking to deploy the right level of resource, i.e. an officer, instead of a PCSO after 8 o'clock.
Just for convenience, the lady next to the lady with the green top.
Just 2 things quickly. Talking about the congestion of the high street, where a lot of vehicles park on the right-hand side, and the double yellow lines, and some of them seem to just park there to go in and have a haircut. Last week, a police car was parked at the high street on the left-hand side for 2 hours. That was a deterrent, and not one vehicle in those 2 hours parked on the right-hand side. 5 minutes after they went, there was about 4 vehicles on the right-hand side again. So my point is, police presence is a deterrent. Going back to these youngsters who wear balaclavas a lot, even when it's 30 degrees, it's well known amongst them that they're often under 16, and word gets around, wear a balaclava, nobody will catch you. If they do, we'll just get a slap on the wrist, and then they're back out again causing a nuisance. So you say that there are hot spots where police officers walk around for up to 18 minutes. One officer isn't enough. I think personally you need one officer one side of the hot spot and another officer on the other half, because these youngsters, they phone each other and say there's a policeman coming, and they scatter for 10 minutes or so. So we know what we can't do because of their age, but can you tell us what we can do because of their age? Because it is getting worse, and there is no deterrent.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. I noted 3 points you made on there, so I'm just going to cover off the first one that you referenced in relation to parking, because the lady next to you referenced it. So parking was decriminalised back in May 2012, so it falls to the District Council. That said, I have made a note. Obviously, I've got the contacts there. We'll make reference about the fact that they are parking there. Yes, the police service can, if a vehicle is obstructing a highway, so to speak. And in essence, we obviously have to work in relation to the guidelines of the law, if you will. So the person has to be there and then obstructed for us to take action. So it can't, for example, madam, if you were to send a photograph in, we can't react to that later on, if that makes sense. The next part that you referenced in relation to the hotspot, there's only one hotspot in Stourport, so you've Bridge Street, High Street and York Street. And finally, the other part in relation to what can be done. So some of the other work that we're doing is a more of a collaborative approach. So it was referenced earlier by the Commissioner in talking about intervention prevention officers. We have them on the area. So for those that you referenced, those are under 16. What we'll tend to do is we will work with the schools, so education, those that are outside of schools, madam, those that are outside of schools, we'll work with the parents as well. We'll put some support in for the parents, PIG support, that assist parents that are struggling, and also we can signpost them from there, because obviously cost of living crisis. If there's any substance misuse, be it alcohol, etc., we can signpost them to other agencies such as Cranston. More importantly, we're working closely with the Kidderminster District Youth Trust. So we will use their outreach workers to engage as much as possible with these youths. Because naturally, if I was to go walking around the Walshes, just for an example, the likelihood is they just see the uniform, or of course the detached youth workers. They are just obviously outside of that, so they can gain that closeness. They can signpost them to the youth clubs that they have as well. We've one on Burlish Top that works really successfully. There are other intervention schemes that we're looking to put in place for the youth, certainly around the Walshes. We've had success in the past with the Rowing Club, we've had success in the past with the Boxing Club. We're looking at working in the future. Toxie, you'll like this one, with the Warriors Foundation, rugby, as well for the local youths as well. So there's lots of different things that we're trying to work in a collaborative approach. Of course, clearly if there are youths carrying knives, we have a national operation, that's Operation Sceptre. So my expectation of my officers is obviously that we will take action in relation to that, but notwithstanding, of course, that it's really important that we link in with yourselves, so that when my officers are there, when they hold police surgeries in and around the horses, that's your opportunity, obviously, to engage with those officers. If you can't ring 101 or go online, you should be able to see, they do advertise them.
They cancel them. They only advertise about 30 minutes before they're due, and then they get cancelled.
Well, madam,
so let's not go there.
Madam, I'm pleased you've told me that, because I've actually asked that they actually put them up in medical centres and places whereby they can be seen, and we actually strictly attend those, because that for me is a really, really useful engagement to pick up some of the things that I'm picking up to take away.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot the lady on the second row who also has been waiting. Now I'm coming to the gentleman on the end who's got sunglasses on the right top, and then the lady at the back, and the other gentleman again.
Hello, my name's Julie. I've lived in Redstone Lane for 23 years. When I first moved there, and been upset now, my mum said to me, "You're buying a house on the wrong side of the bridge." Now, I have always defended that and said, don't be so silly, but however, having been a registered nurse and covering North Worcestershire on my own for the last God knows how many years, and I retired 5 years ago, I can actually say I live on the wrong side of the bridge. There is nothing being done over here to help us. You say about this 15 minutes of hotspot. The hotspot is not the High Street, Bridge Street and York Street. The hotspot is Redstone Lane, Abbey Avenue and the Walshes. And we need assistance now, because we will get vigilantes. I just want to say, adding to that, I have 2 dogs. I'm frightened to death of walking my dogs on my own, because I now live on the wrong side of the bridge.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Sorry, the lady 2 behind you as well also has been waiting, and I'll go to that gentleman over there. So behind, sorry, two ladies behind with white on.
Hello, I've lived in Stourport all my life. I used to respect the police. If I saw a policeman in the street, I was terrified. The youths of today are laughing at the police. They are not scared of you. They know that you will not do anything. These kids with balaclavas, I wore one tonight for a purpose. Why not take them off them? They're only up to trouble. They're not wearing them as a fashion accessory. And all these bikes. There's no respect. And like I said, they're just laughing at you. You used to be able to get a clip round the ear roll from the policeman. there was respect. You have lost all respect and you've lost all your powers. What are you going to do?
Thank you, Madam. So let's touch on the balaclava issue again. What powers have the police got available to them? They come across, for example, the lady was in a balaclava before. What powers have you got to intervene currently from Parliament?
Very few. So to walk up and down the street in a balaclava is not a criminal offence. I agree. Sorry, let me finish. So depending on the circumstances, it may, I suspect it's odd behaviour doing it in 30-degree heat. Okay, so however, if somebody was to be seen walking down the street in a balaclava, it may give grounds for officers to stop search. All of our officers wear body-worn video. We can only act within the grounds of the law, and we can't just stop search anybody, and we have to act on the information, the circumstances of that individual stop.
Thank you. Lizzie?
Why haven't we got public spaces, protection orders, like the likes of Wolverhampton, Liverpool have got, which does allow you in a certain geographical area, say Raven Street, High Street and Areley Kings, of wearing a mask except for medical and religious purposes, and you can be stopped and the mask can be taken off you. That's there, that's already working in 7 or 8 different places and more coming online. So when Stourport was given the title of the worst town in West Mercia for antisocial behaviour in January, why didn't we put this in place then? Why isn't there a plan? You have to sit down with the council and agree it, like Liverpool and Wolverhampton have done, and they now have the powers to do that within a certain geographical area.
Your point's been well made, and you heard the officer earlier say that it should be looked into, and I agree with you.
It's January, and now it's August, and it sounds like it's going to be next year or the year after. We need action now.
Part of today is to take that action, and because it hasn't been taken, doesn't mean to say it shouldn't be taken, and that's what we've heard loud and clear. So we've got the gentleman, sorry Lizzie, over the far side with the white top on and the sunglasses, who've been waiting, and then there's some others who've spoken before who are drawing again, and the gentleman in the blue shirt. So the white shirt gentleman first.
Hi, good afternoon. Martin Gavin.
Sorry, I haven't seen
it. Wrong one, no. Martin Gavin, lived here for 76 years in Stourport and Areley Kings. To make the point that I made with the people, when I lived here, first of all, there was a police station. Later on, there's a large police station in Stourport. There were satellite stations on the Walshes and around the various towns. And I just wonder whether the downturn in behaviour is partly by that. Is it somebody else talking?
Yeah, sorry.
So, sorry, I'm trying to look at the correlation between the disappearance of police stations, which you can't do much about, and the upsurge in antisocial behaviour, which is very valid. A number of people asked me today to talk about these e-bikes and ask you a question. On several occasions, I've been met by bikes going the wrong way in Lombard Street and Vale Road.
Yeah.
What's my position if they smash into me? I've driven up Lombard Street, they're coming down quite quickly at the centre of the road, straight towards me, and duck off at the last minute. If they hit me, how do I stand?
It'll be your fault. It'll be your fault.
I'm asking a question for you guys.
Somebody should do if they come across that.
My friend said reverse back over the road. One more question. For the last few days,
just have the mic back just so people can hear you. Sorry, sir.
This is an important one. For the last few days, there's been a vehicle parked outside the bridge. It's got more parking tickets than I can throw a book at. And I've been told, I understand, the traffic wardens have said once they pay the fine, you can't do much about it. It's a traffic hazard. People are trying to avoid it to go around it. And with these lights being done this week, it's even worse. It's a real, outside the bridge pub. It's been there for, it's been there. It's actually waiting to happen. I asked myself the question, do we have to wait for a fatality before we do anything about it?
The car overturned in that area.
There you go.
I'll take the matter of the parking offence and the obstruction. So if it's an obstruction offence and it's causing an obstruction and endangering other road users, we will get involved. If it's a parking offence, it's a matter for the local authority. However, we do have good relationships with the local authority, and as my colleague has already said, we will share that information in relation to that specific ban.
Past it today.
We agreed if we do one at a time, we'd let him answer. So can we just let him answer?
And then in relation to your first point, I think I followed it. So you would be going about your lawful business. You'd be on the right side of the road, and they would be on the wrong side of the road. Yeah. So they're in the wrong. So So they would be in the wrong. I'd encourage you to report it. I get the level of feeling of a lack of confidence in terms of what we will do. However, if you don't report it and we don't know, we're not in a position to take action. So I'd encourage you to report it. The local policing team or our roads policing team will then look to identify those responsible and take appropriate action under offences under the road traffic law.
Sir, with respect. So, no, hang on a second. We've got order. We've got the gentleman just here who's been waiting with a blue shirt on, next to the lady with the fan, and then there's the gentleman with the orange and blue top on. Yeah, either way, Ryan.
Thank you.
These are people that wear these balaclavas. They're not real balaclavas because you can see all the face. They also go around with scarves up here, and all you can see is their eyes. And I've seen police cars, and I'm not making this up, go past them when I've been out in my own car, and they do as this gentleman said at the end. They go for you. They're coming down the one-way street the wrong way, and they just aim for you.
They laugh at you.
And I think a lot of the problem is, I don't think you got enough officers because the forces was scaled down a few years ago, and there's not enough. I haven't seen a bloke in uniform walking around Stourport for, I think since I've lived here 22 years, I've seen a man walking down with a uniform on twice. And I can't understand that.
Thank you, sir. The force has the most officers it's ever had, but what is the feeling here, and I get the point, is that the community doesn't feel the benefit of that, and that's part of why having the conversation tonight is to understand what the feeling is, so that something can be done about it. But your point is a well made one. We've got the gentleman on the third row.
We've all said the same thing.
I'm John. Last Saturday night, there was 4 cars parked in Bridge Street where the car park was closed. There was a van parked outside the Bridge pub, and apparently it's the gaffer's van. And these 4 cars were parked, and one was even on the zigzags on the Pelican crossing. There was a police car reversed in by the factory shop. They never got out that car to have a word with them.
No.
And another thing is, I've seen kids going over the bridge on these e-bikes doing wheelies. And the only time the police will come is if they fall off or if they're killed.
Thank you, sir. So I'm just going to call this lady who's not spoken, and then I'll come back to those who've spoken before. So, lady with the green top on.
I'm Anne. There's been a lot of debate about what goes on in the Walshes. Well, I live on the canal bank, and we are part of a network that is nearly 2.5 miles long and leads from Wilden Bottom through along the Leapgate walkway and along the canal and into Stourport. And we are a regular rat run for e-bikes, mini motorbikes and for electric bikes. About 2 years ago, husband and I pulled a dead body out of the canal. Now, shortly before this, we had to leap out of the way as an e-bike went past. The gentleman who went into the canal was even older than us. We're pretty doddery, not particularly. It was very cold. It was January. We managed to help get him out. In the mud of the canal bank, it was very clear that if he hadn't actually been hit by that e-bike, he had to leap out of the way and lost his footing. You could see where his footprints were in relation to the tyre tracks in the mud. Now, that man every attempt was made to resuscitate him. Sadly, it failed. The ambulance crew took over from us. I very much doubt if the police were even aware of that.
Where the first responders were 2 police.
Apparently.
PCSO.
There was a PCSO, so maybe they did. We regularly walk along the canal and we see dead pigeons, dead squirrels, dead ducks, dead swans, well, injured swans. And one of the reasons is that this, sadly, you see, your uniform isn't as familiar to us as the black outfits and the black ski mask. And no offence to you, but that is the truth. We also see fishermen being fired at. Now, I understand there is a new law regarding catapults, because that's a common weapon of choice among this brigade of black ninja types. We've certainly seen fishermen hit, and the thing is that they're using catapults, but they're firing steel ball bearings. This is as lethal as any gun. We've seen people with quite severe head injuries. You know exactly what's happened, because there's steel ball bearings on the path all around them.
And it's been reported for 2 years, that has.
Yeah, certainly we've been witnessing it on the towpath.
2 years.
Well, during COVID.
Wildlife, also the glass going down.
So,
yes.
I've got others just waiting to speak.
So can I ask, is there a change in the law regarding catapults? And there was a comment about drones. Because of the distance of footpath, I did actually see your PCSOs on the towpath. It's the first time I've ever seen them there since 2016, and it was a very welcome sight. But it was the middle of a sunny afternoon. Are drones available? Because it seems to me that's the only way you're going to tackle these e-bikes that are off-roading.
Thanks, Madam. So, catapults and drones there.
I'm not going to claim to know the legislation around specifically about catapults. But what I will say is, depending on what they look like and how they're used, there would probably be some offences there. Yeah. So, and then in relation, and then the point about the drones, I think it's already been covered. So
it was asked but not answered.
Okay, so at the moment we are exploring how we increase the use of our drone capability, because it's not something that we would use on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. However, when it is required, we do have the ability to call on some other forces, but also the fire service. So we work really closely with the fire service, we're co-located in some areas, and we have got the ability to deploy those drones, and they give us that capability depending on the problem. And just because we're working with the fire service, it doesn't need to be a rescue or a fire. We agree with that, those principles, working really closely to use their drones as and when it's required. What I can't say is if it's ever been used in Stourport, but it's something we can take away and have a look at.
It definitely has in a search and rescue a couple of times, but it is a way of policing an area that is a rat run and difficult for you to police, however many policemen you've got.
Using technology, really important. So we've got the gentleman in the middle with the blue shirt. Just hold on a second for the mic so others can hear you, because some people will use the hearing loop, is why we use the mic.
Can I just ask for a response to the questions, several questions about the illegal parking in Bridgestreet?
We will come back to that, I promise. Yes, sir.
Simon again, local to Stourport. These e-bikes aren't off-road. They're going through the centre of town, pulling wheelies behind your police vehicles during daytime hours of 4:30, 5:30 in the afternoon when I'm walking home from work, and also at 1:30 in the evening at night behind a police van at the Swan, and nothing happens. I appreciate there is stuff, you can't chase them, what have you. Get a couple of stingers. You've got the intelligence now. It's happening. It's been reported. It's about time, because Chief Inspector King, one thing you don't want to do is have a fatality like having Redditch with these people coming through town and have life-changing injuries. Don't let it happen in Stourport, please. But thank you for the good work you've also done with the intelligence that you have for that drug raid in Abbey. You know, that must be commended as well.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you.
Ed, very briefly, about if an officer sees, somebody on one of these bikes wheeling as in near their police car, what would you expect them to do? Just bring to life what an officer what decisions or options would they have to be able to deploy? What would you expect?
So put quite simply, I'd expect if they're not en route to a higher priority grade, i.e. a call for a domestic abuse call, for those officers to attempt to stop that vehicle. And if that vehicle then doesn't stop, to follow up and try and identify through CCTV, through neighbourhood inquiries, the identity of that driver, and then to take the appropriate action afterwards with a follow-up visit.
And parking's come up a lot. Tonight I, in a previous life, was part of decriminalising parking in Whiteford because I wanted to make sure we got control over parking enforcement as a council, and the police were freed up to do their warranted work that they've got. What would you expect, Ed, in terms of the relationship? For example, parking predominantly a council matter, but if it's out of control, as being described here tonight, what would you expect the police's role to try and fix it, work away so it doesn't feel? I go up and down High Street a lot myself and see the chaos that it causes. What would you expect to be the route to solving a problem that's been there for a very long time?
So the police's responsibility, my expectation, would be to share the information with the local authority at key times, work alongside civil enforcement officers, and for the police to take action where there is obstruction and in danger to other road users. Dave has already said we've got some good relationships with the local authority, and what I would expect the police to do through neighbourhood matters, hopefully you're all signed up, just feed that back. To tell you and to tell your friends, your family and people who are signed up on our system what the police and the local authority have done.
Parking tickets tends to be like speed enforcement. In the comments underneath there's a whole raft of haven't you got anything better through to well done. But it's absolutely a point where that system needs to be responding better to something. So I've got the gentleman right at the back who hasn't voted before, and then there's the lady in front with the red top. I've then got the gentleman who's spoken before with the glasses on, the man next to him, and then the gentleman on the other side of the aisle. If I've missed any of you, put your hand up afterwards. And the lady there, I think I missed one. And the lady that spoke before there. Okay, thank you. So the gentleman right at the back.
Hello, I'm Jonathan, I live here. I just thought about the parking in the High Street and Bridge Street. It's absolutely bonkers. They're not just parking on lines, they're parking on the footpaths, particularly in Bridge Street. They've all got number plates, and I don't understand why they're not prosecuted for actually parking on the pavement, and they're causing pedestrians to walk into the road, into the line of traffic. I just find it crazy that there's nothing in place to actually stop it. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. The lady in front of you?
Is it a parking offence to park on the pavement? It's an offence.
Hang on a second. So we have touched on parking a couple of times, but do you want to describe the very complex difference between how the civil local council would do enforcement and the powers the police would have?
So the point would be, clearly if there's a vehicle parked on double yellow lines, that will fall to the district council and their civil enforcement officers to go and issue that vehicle a ticket. What you've alluded to at the back when you've just asked, madam, is if there was a vehicle that was parked on a footpath that would block, for example, someone using a pushchair, a mobility scooter, but then naturally, because they would then, like as you've alluded to, sir, would they have to step into the road to go around? Yes, that is an offence. That certainly I would expect for the police service to be informed about.
So intelligence is often the key bit, and you're not always going to get a unit there and then, but if somebody's doing something regularly, that intel to drive that to happen, no pun intended, can be the key. Lady in front of you with the red top.
Just as a small point, for my own clarity, can you explain to me where antisocial behaviour finishes and crime that you would take more seriously starts? So when I say I'm afraid to go out in the evenings, isn't because of youngsters on e-scooters. You know, I would, if they were just going to give me a mouthful of abuse, that wouldn't keep me in my house. But the fact that they are carrying weapons, which has been alluded to by several people, knives, all different weapons that they're carrying, that is what makes people afraid. So it keeps coming back to the table, and we talk a lot about antisocial behaviour, and we've got the people that deal with antisocial behaviour. To me, a lot of this is a lot more than antisocial behaviour. It's not a group of gobby youths that we're worried about. It's the fact that they've got knives in their pockets. It's the fact that they're going to take a catapult out and use a ball bearing against somebody. So where's the difference? Where does antisocial behaviour finish and more serious crime start? There must be a level for that. And secondly, can we still have neighbourhood watches? And my last thing, just the gentleman on the end, if you're doing community things with kids, if you'd like to speak to me afterwards, I belong to a charity that we do things. I'm very successful with Manchester Police in rugby.
Thank you. So to answer your question, it's really difficult, and I don't believe we do draw a line between antisocial behaviour and crime, because quite often there's a real crossover, and that sometimes, and we've seen tragically, how some of the lowest form of antisocial behaviour, taken in isolation, name calling, and I'm not belittling that, but the impact that has, if that's not addressed consistently, we have to be proportionate what we do, and this is not me to say we're going to flood the streets of Stourport over the next month, but what we don't do is put everything in neat swim lanes and boxes and say that's antisocial behaviour, that doesn't get a response, that's a crime, that does. Some of the most impactful offences that we deal with starts antisocial behaviour and then escalates. In terms of neighbourhood watches, yeah, absolutely. We'd encourage you to do it. What I would say, and this is not a sales pitch, but what is clear today is I want my teams to engage with you, and I want them to share information, and I want you to be able to engage with those teams. Neighbourhood Matters does exactly that. You can report online, and it's not about fudging an answer, but you can understand what the local policing team are doing, both in terms of being visible, when to contact them, and you can then feed in your concerns and it goes directly to the officer. So you're not going by the control route, you're not being delayed. It's a good system. There are thousands of people signed up to it. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands as to who is signed up, but I genuinely would encourage you, the feedback that we get from members of the public who have signed up to that system is overwhelmingly positive. So please do. Please work with us. We can't solve the feeling in the room tonight without your support. We police by consent, and my officers and staff, there are finite numbers for Stourport, and we could speak here till midnight tonight. But I really want them to celebrate, to share, and to listen to your concerns, and the best way of doing that is by Neighbourhood Matters.
Thanks. The gentleman with sunglasses on the head, the row in front. That's it. And then
just touching back on a few people have mentioned these e-bikes and the scooters being on the roads, on the pavement, etc. If I drove my car down the road with no tax, no insurance, no MOT, and got pulled over, car is confiscated. These bikes and scooters are illegal on the roadway. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Why can you not just seize them, take them off them, get the names and addresses? If it's worth 500 quid, find the parents 500 quid as well on top. Top your fund up, get the policing on the road where it should be. It's now that across the country, the police force is down on its backside with numbers. You know, we wouldn't send a goalkeeper and a centre forward to try and win the World Cup, and that's what you're trying to do. I appreciate that, and I believe that policing does start at home, but unless we retaliate and hit back at home and make sure that the parents are doing their thing, hit them where it hurts in the pocket, take these e-bikes and scooters off them on the street, because if you don't cure them as kids, they're going to be hooligans behind a steering wheel before you know it, and you ain't going to cope at all.
Lizzie, we're coming up here to this lady who's been waiting very patiently. Around e-scooters in our society, part of the problem is that they are prevalent within our society and illegal at the same time. And so we saw some terrible instances in South Wales being a really good example of where young people lost their lives following some police intervention. We haven't yet caught up as to how we can use technology and other tactics to intervene there and then. So therefore, coming at it afterwards, intelligence to know who they are and the like is the central part at the moment. Because I don't understand today in the world that we live in why there isn't a device that can zap at it and it just disables it. It's electronic, so why does it chase it? Need it to be chased? But we're not there yet. I've had quite a lot of reassurance that they do get seized and indeed they do get crushed. But unfortunately, you can go and buy a new one in Halford and the like, and indeed they quickly get replaced.
But they need to be crushed.
We've got the lady at the front with the blue top on.
Hello, I'm Christine. Having been the victim of antisocial behaviour and the impact it had on me, in my mind there's absolutely no difference at all between antisocial behaviour and criminal behaviour. I was shocked at the way it affected me. If I'd had my car stolen, I wouldn't have felt half as bad, or the impact wouldn't have lasted half as long. The situation was resolved as well as it could be, because I wasn't introduced to the child personally, his name is hearsay. On another note, I applaud you for interacting and engaging young people with the initiatives you've got going. But these children don't go to school, they don't go engage with anybody. Their parents and families, they're a generational thing. They've got older brothers within the system, parents in the system, and I'm sure they're all well known to you.
You can take those 15 off the streets now.
So, Lizzie, we've got the lady over here on the second row, and then there's a gentleman towards the back. Sorry, I thought it was the lady in front, the lady with the white top on, sorry. Nearly causing a riot, Lou?
Right, our illustrious Home Secretary announced last November about policing things. She also wrote on the 9th of April 2025 that she would be publishing details on how many neighbourhood police officers and specials and PCSOs each force will be putting into their neighbourhood teams by the end of March. And she actually put a link where you can find where the allocations will go. So, I went on that link, and West Mercia Police, based on their funding allocation, their projected growth over 25 and 26 will be 31 police officers, 20 police community support officers, and 15 special constables. West Mercia Police covers 2,868 square miles, making the 4th largest police area in England and Wales. The resident population of the area is 1.19 million. West Midlands Police, based on their funding allocation and projected growth over 2025-2026, will be 889 police officers, 20 police community support service officers. They are responsible for 348 square miles with 2.96 million inhabitants. This means that the West Mercia Police cover 8 times the area of the West Midlands. And okay, they've only got 1.19 million, well, it's probably bigger than that now, and West Midlands have got 2.93. But why it's such a disparity? I can't understand why we've only got 50 odd police officers and they've got nearly 300. And we're 8 times the size, covering 8 times the size of the area of the West Midlands. Who's allocating it? Is it the Home Secretary? She's so remote from what's going on. Can't she do maths? You know, what's coming up?
So we're going to go to the lady behind as well, but police funding, so roughly we spend about £300 million here in West Mercia. We've got an adult population of about 1.3 million people. We are funded roughly just under 60% from government grant and about 40% from your council tax. The way that the government grant gets spread around all of the force areas is not fair. The West Midlands get a much higher per head grant than we do. And it's not a Labour Conservative problem because the Tories didn't fix it and Labour aren't going to fix it either. Because to fix it, they would need to bring us up to the West Midlands level, to which I doubt they're ever going to do. So there is, and I'm a politician myself, so I can self-admit there's a bit of fluff and nonsense in there, people trying to take credit for something, but at the end of the day, there is very little additional money going into policing. Because the numbers you quote, 31 additional, it isn't 31 brand new, there are 12 additional officers out of 2,500, and we are having to shift officers from other parts of the organisation to the community policing element. Now, all of that, the stats, I hope you get the sense are irrelevant, isn't it? Because it's how it feels to us as a community. If it doesn't feel that we're seeing enough police officers, if it doesn't feel that crime is being tackled, if it doesn't feel that antisocial behaviour is being seen and acting on, it's irrelevant how many we've got because you're not getting the service you need. And my contention to you is the funding formula is unfair and it needs fixing. They're not going to do it anytime soon. So my mission in the meantime is to maximise the resources we've got. And I would say to you, we're not doing that. And tonight it's pretty universal that you don't feel that you're getting that service and we need to improve. And towards the end, very shortly, I want to talk about the next steps and what we should do next. But I think your point is very, very well made. We can always do more with more, but we can do more with what we've got now, madam. So we've got the...
Just one lady at the back.
Okay. Thank you. So I've got the lady in green, and then there's a lady at the back, and then there's a lady in the dress, and then we'll be at 8 o'clock, and we will draw things together.
I just wanted to bring up cycling on the pavements when it's not necessary, especially in the high street in the town. It's not just e-scooters, ordinary bikes, and they just come at speed and they weave in and out of the pedestrians. There's going to be an accident one day along the high street in the town. They just cycle and they're weaving in and out of the pedestrians.
Thank you, madam. Where was the person? And then there's a lady in the aisle with the pink dress on.
Hi, thank you. My name's Hazel. I live on Hyde Place. You keep mentioning e-scooters. More of the scourge around here is actually motorbikes. Motorbikes on the park, motorbikes going down the alleyways. I watched 2 young lads get on a motorbike outside the co-op the other day. I was out for a run, and they just got 2 of them got on one bike, shot down the road, pulled a wheelie. I went to get my phone out of my pocket, and they both gave me a legal look, and I thought, I'm on my own. I am not going to take a photograph of you. So it's not just e-scooters, it is motorbikes, which actually, if you're going across the park and there's an old lady with a dog, many old Stourport dogs over there, they could kill somebody. And I think you really need to get an idea of what the scourge is around here with the motorbikes and e-bikes. Very few e-scooters, it is predominantly motorbikes and bikes.
Thank you, madam. So there's 2 ladies actually, Lizzie in the middle. There's a lady with a polka top on, and then the lady in front of her in the middle aisle. Where's the other?
Hello. I'm just a little bit concerned, nobody's mentioned this, about the drugs that are being used around in Stourport. I mean, I go out in my garden, I can smell it. I walk the dog, I can smell it. I've seen people acting suspiciously that appear to be going in and exchanging something and coming out. I was speaking to some boaters the other day, and they'd been, the first time in Stourport, they'd gone into the basin and they were going to moor up, but they'd had an altercation with somebody on an e-bike in a balaclava, and it had got quite nasty, and they were a bit scared because they were told that they were the drugs couriers of Stourport. So that they go racing up and down the canal all the time. I have to keep getting my dog out of the way, and that's what they were told. So they came out of the basin, they didn't stay, and they went and moored up further away. because they didn't want to be a part of it, but they were quite shaken by what had happened.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, I've got the lady behind with the pocket at the top.
Seen them actually exchange money and
Madam? No, yourself, madam. Sorry.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask what is done to monitor and gather intelligence regarding known culprits of antisocial behaviour and crime. I personally know of an under 18 with a level 2 ASBO order on bail conditions to stay away from certain friends who he's out with every single day, and I know they travel around the district, Kidderminster, Stourport, Bewdley, causing chaos. I see photos on public Facebook groups. There's no one checking up. I know local police officers are aware that these individuals are still together and nothing ever seems to get done. I think a lot of people wonder the same question: what happens to known individuals? Where is the responsive policing if they're causing issues on the Welshes, on Areley Kings, in town? Isn't it time that the police reflect and respond in the areas that the police is needed at current time rather than 6 months later?
Thank you. I'll get Ed to respond. We're going to come to Val, and then we're going to come to this lady, and then I'm going to summarise, because we're going to be past 8 o'clock and talk about the steps that we're going to take next. Ed?
So in terms of if and when somebody's on bail, my expectation is, and this does happen, so those individuals' details feature on a briefing of safe neighbourhood teams and our response cops, and those cops will be tasked with enforcing those bail conditions. Now, sometimes what happens, if it is police bail and we are not in a position to charge with that original offence, which is why they're on bail, all that would happen, because it's police bail, is if we were to bring them into a police station there and then, they would be released, because we're not in a position to charge. If it's court bail, it's very different. They're held before the next court, and the court decide what to do with them. If therefore it is police bail, it may be therefore more appropriate in some cases, and I don't know about your specific example which you raise, to build that evidence, so when we consider a charge, for the custody sergeant to say, look, we've considered a number of bail options to the court, however, we can evidence now that you have previously breached your police bail on 6, 7, 8, 9 occasions, and therefore we'll use that as evidence and a reason to say to the court why that person has been remanded. So my expectation is bail conditions are enforced, and if they can't be enforced, to be considered at the point of charge.
Yeah, briefly, Dave.
Madam, did you make reference it was a level 2 antisocial behaviour letter that this individual was given?
Yeah.
So the way it works, of course, is different levels. You've got level 1, level 2, level 3. And level 3, in essence, with the youth, would be a meeting. So I would be keen that would be, the local team would be made aware of that, because if that's there and they can evidence that, then we would immediately up that to a level 3. And then, of course, there are things that we can look at, criminal behaviour orders, etc. I won't name drop, but I think you'll be aware we have evicted families previously within Stourport, troubled individuals within the town taking action. So I would really welcome you actually reporting that into the local police team.
They're aware.
Thank you.
Val, and then the lady at the front, and then I'm going to sum up.
Thanks very much. I think you can hear by everybody in this room that there is a lot of dissatisfaction with the level of policing and visibility of policing in the town. We're not blaming the individuals who are in those positions, they're working within the limitations of the resources. I think what I'd like to see from this meeting is some positive suggestions from the top table. What are you going to do to increase visibility? It's quite simple, get a few more police walking around. Action with children and events for children. There has been no police involvement in any youth activities on the Welshes or in Stourport, to my mind, for a couple of years. They used to come and get involved with KDYT. We have KDYT at the community centre on the Welshes several times a year. The police do not attend. They've been invited. There are other events going on Barnfield Park held by Community Housing and KDYT. There is no police attendance. Why don't we go back a bit to where police used to be visible, come and speak to the friendly Bobby, try his hat on, play with the horns in his car. It breaks down those barriers. At the minute, we're in a lawless society, I believe. People do what they want to do because they know there are no repercussions for bad, unsociable behaviour, adults and children alike. I think what I'd like to see is, you keep going on about this neighbourhood matters. There has been nothing from Stourport policing team on neighbourhood matters since the last couple of weeks of publicity for this meeting. There's a young police PCSO, I think in Kiddy. I actually live in Foley Park, although I work on the Walshes. He puts reports in every week. I've visited here, I've been there, I've spoken to a couple of youths on bikes. And you know, just seeing him do that makes me feel, oh, there are police about and they are listening and they're going around talking to the public. What's stopping that being done? It doesn't cost any more than the resources you already have. Why are we not having more meetings like this where the community can have, you know, a brainstorming session with you? What do you want us to do? How can we do it? Let's get on and move and have some action. But I think at the minute there's a lot. I spoke to one of the PCSOs. We don't put anything on our Facebook page because we get criticised. Grow up. We all get criticised no matter what we do or how we do it. But at least you're being visible and you're listening. At the moment there's a bit of a silence going on, and I think lack of information breeds contempt, it breeds rumours, and it breeds not a nice view of the police. We don't want to go there, we don't want vigilantes, so I hope you take it from here that you do more like this, but in smaller groups in those areas where people have concerns. Listen to the community, not waiting for online reports. Thank you.
The final comment from the lady on the second row.
I just wanted to find out from you, because we know that our borders obviously border on Malvern, and you're saying that that is in the South Worcestershire. Now, we've had a lot of fires and things over on the Snipes, and we know that there's a lot of e-bikes and motorbikes going onto the Snipes and doing whatever they are doing. Who looks after the Snipes if it comes under South Worcestershire, which is Malvern district?
And the houses.
And the houses, of course.
The houses that there's in as well.
Absolutely. So there are at the moment there are two different chief inspectors. So Dave's equivalent would look after what's responsible in South Worcester, and then Dave would look after what's in Stourport and in North Worcester. We are changing our operating model, which I won't go into detail with. But my expectation, and this does happen, is Dave has a close working relationship with the South Worcestershire Chief Inspector for safer neighbourhood teams at that strategic level, so where we're using our resources, but also then to share information at the tactical operational level, so criminals and antisocial behaviour people do not respect any invisible boundary, and wherever it falls is somewhat irrespective to them. And therefore, we will ensure that we share information with the right team, and whether it be the team in Malvern or the team here, to take the lead of the investigation. What we will not have is two teams running in parallel doing the same thing. That's nonsense.
Yeah,
We've got to get them working together.
Yeah.
They do, and we will continue to do
I
that.
can understand that, but what I'm saying is, who responds when we phone up and say there's a problem on the Snipes? It comes under Malvern and South Worcestershire. Who responds then?
The closest resource. So at the minute, all our officers on duty will be tracked by their signal and their radio. We will send the most appropriate and closest resource, and we will continue to do that, not just in the Snipeses, but across West Mercia.
So I want to thank you for coming. I hope you get the sense that we're not here to win you around. We're here to hear what you've had to say. Part of answering or addressing some of the points is giving context. That doesn't in any way devalue how it feels to you, because that's the point. You're the citizen, you're the person that gives consent to policing to use their powers, you give their money, and so therefore you have to have confidence in that service. Now, the reason we run tonight is we've built up that sense that there is a problem here, that there is that building angst, that there is a concern. We've done a bit of legwork in the last couple of months trying to understand what that might be, because we wanted to get some idea of what the problem is. That's what tonight is about. Now, there's no magic wand, there's no box of resources that we will just unbox and be able to deploy and fix the problem. But the reason of having Ed here as the most senior uniformed officer in our area is the fact he is in a position to help nuance what we currently have. He is in a position, and far enough away from your hard-working local policing teams who are trying their best to know how we set them up to succeed. I do live locally, and hopefully I haven't wanged on about that too much. So I do see some of these things, and I do see things that I don't like and we have to address as society. Policing is a finite resource, and as Commissioner I know perhaps more than the average citizen, and that's the way it should be. But what I do know is we are not selling enough of our successes to policing, and we're not doing, to the public, and we're not doing the point that Belle is making, which is working collaboratively enough with the community around our society. So there's a couple of bits from tonight, and first of all, I think we need to come back in terms of we need to set another meeting, and maybe 6 months is the right time to do it. But in the intervening period, there needs to be clear action, there needs to be the collaboration that we've talked about, there needs to be a change in the tempo in the way that some of these things are happening, there needs to be some clear wins and successes that we can well, we need long enough to be able to do some of these stuff is societal issues. So it's not that nothing will happen in 6 months. It is about giving enough time for things to change and be sustainable. And during that period, one of the things that needs to happen is upping in the communications. Now, I don't follow the Stourport element of Neighbourhood Matters. And I see Nathan, the person whoever referred to earlier, and I see their messages because I live in that bit of Kidderminster. But I do know that it is a tool that lots of people are signed up for, and there are lots of other things that we love Stourport, past and present. We've got 20-odd thousand followers, and they're very good at sharing messages and alike, etc. We can do more at selling some of those successes. So my commitment is to come back in a similar style in 6 months' time, but in the meantime, there is enough happening to give you some confidence, or indeed not. Because I'm here because I want to be held accountable. Ed is here because we want to be held accountable. So I recognise that not everybody will have spoken tonight or have the confidence. There are lots of other ways to get in touch. So online is one, on my Facebook page, on my website. There is the local channels for the team. We also will wait around afterwards to make sure those that didn't have the confidence to speak in the session get that opportunity. My final commitment to you is we can make a difference, we can improve what it is now. As to whether we can make it 100%, I don't think any of you expect that. But I absolutely believe that we can make some improvements. And thank you for coming tonight and putting up with the heat. It is worthwhile, and in 6 months' time we'll be able to tell you whether the proof was in the pudding. So thank you very much and have a safe journey home.